My parents don't think you're right for me. They believe I can do better, Natalie told me. I looked at her calmly and said, then maybe you should. That night, I quietly transferred our apartment lease into her name, canceled the credit card she used, and packed my things. While she slept, I walked out of the life we had built together. Exactly 1 week later, her entire family showed up at my front door, pleading for me to take her back. Here's the strange part. When your heart shatters like that, you don't always explode. There's no yelling, no tears, just this chilling, glass-clear sense of focus that takes over. Natalie and I had been together for 3 years. We met just after graduating college, during a friend's housewarming party. She was stunning, driven, and sharp, a woman who seemed to embody everything I ever hoped for. We moved in together after a year, got engaged the next. We were well into wedding plans when the floor gave out beneath us. In hindsight, I should have noticed the red flag sooner. Her parents, Richard and Caroline, had never exactly embraced me. They were the polished, country club kind of people, old money, elite boarding schools, vacation homes in the Hamptons. I, on the other hand, was from a working-class Ohio family. I'd paid my way through state college with loans and part-time jobs, and was just beginning to build a career in architecture at a modest but respectable firm. Whenever we had dinner with them, they'd ask leading questions about my professional ambitions, trying to sound polite while clearly evaluating me. Caroline often brought up Natalie's ex-boyfriend, some Wall Street guy now raking in at a hedge fund in Manhattan. Richard frequently steered conversations toward the children of his friends, surgeons, CEOs, Ivy League legacies. I tried not to let it get to me. After all, lots of people have difficult in-laws, right? Natalie would discreetly squeeze my hand under the table, exchange a secret eye roll when her parents weren't watching. I believe we were in it together. The day everything changed wasn't dramatic, just a regular Thursday in April. I got home from a long day, worn out from a client meeting. She was sitting at the kitchen island, staring blankly at her laptop. "Hey," I said, tossing my keys into the bowl by the door. "How was your day?" She didn't respond right away, which wasn't like her. Natalie usually had something to say. Work gossip, random facts, whatever she saw on Instagram. Her silence was my first warning. "I had lunch with my parents," she finally said, still looking at the screen. "How are Richard and Caroline?" I asked lightly as I grabbed a beer from the fridge. "They're concerned." I froze, beer halfway in my mouth. Concerned? About what, the wedding? She hesitated before turning toward me. "About you. About whether you're the right person for me." I set the beer on the counter, untouched. "And what do you think?" She shrugged. "They just want what's best for me." "That's not what I asked." With a sigh, she shut her laptop. "They made a few points I hadn't really considered. Like your job, not having the same financial ceiling as, say, finance or medicine. That we might never be able to afford the lifestyle I'm used to. That we come from two very different worlds." "We've known that since the beginning," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You never seemed bothered by it before." I wasn't, but now that we're planning a future, thinking about kids someday, I don't know. They raise some valid concerns. Like how you seem satisfied with where you are. You never talk about making partner or opening your own firm. You just seem okay with being average. That cut deep. I never claimed to be extraordinary, but I worked hard and cared deeply about what I created. I wasn't out to change the world. I just wanted to build something meaningful and steady. So, what exactly are you trying to say, Natalie? She turned her engagement ring around her finger slowly, the same ring I'd saved for months to buy, the one her mother had called quaint. "My parents don't think you're the right fit," she said finally. "They believe I could do better." The room tilted slightly, like a boat adjusting to a sudden wave. 3 years together. 1 year engaged. Dozens of I love yous. Endless shared dreams. And now it all came down to her parents' opinion. "And what do you think?" I asked again, quieter this time. She couldn't look me in the eyes. Maybe they're right. If this were a movie, this would be the part where I'd fight for her, proclaim my love, promise to earn her family's respect. But instead, That icy clarity I mentioned earlier, it settled over me like a blanket. Then you should, I said calmly. Should what? She asked, caught off guard. Do better. If that's what you and your family believe, go ahead. She stared at me like she expected resistance, or maybe tears. Ryan, I'm not saying it's over. I just have doubts. Doubts because your parents don't think I'm good enough for you? It's more complicated than that. Is it? I asked, because it sounds pretty simple to me. I walked past her and headed to our bedroom. Her bewildered face followed me down the hall. I showered, letting the hot water run over me as my mind began laying out the next steps. By the time I dried off, I had a plan. She was already in bed, scrolling through her phone like nothing had changed. Can we talk more tomorrow? She asked. I'm exhausted, and I think we both need some rest. Sure, I said, slipping into bed beside her. But tomorrow wasn't part of my plan. I waited until after midnight, until her breathing was slow and steady. Then I got up, silently pulled my pre-packed gym bag from the closet, and got to work. First, I logged into our apartment's tenant portal. The lease was under my name, with Natalie listed as a resident. We'd done it that way because I had better credit when we moved in. I submitted a request to have myself removed from the lease and transferred entirely to her. It wouldn't go through without her signature and the landlord approval, but I knew it would send the right message. Mr. Peterson, our landlord, was a fair guy. He always liked me. I was sure he'd be reasonable with Natalie about the change if she chose to stay. Next, I logged into my bank. Natalie had a credit card on my account, listed as an authorized user. We'd mostly kept our finances separate, but this card was for shared household expenses. I removed her as an authorized user on the credit card and ordered a fresh one for myself. Then I sat down and compiled a checklist of every account and utility tied to my name: electric, internet, streaming services. Things I'd need to either cancel or transfer after giving her a reasonable heads up. I wrote a short letter explaining I was leaving, that I'd already started the lease transfer process, and that I'd arranged to collect the rest of my things at a later time. I included a note that she had 4 weeks to decide whether to stay in the apartment or look for a new place. I told her I'd keep the utilities running for now, to give her time to switch them to her name. I left the letter on the kitchen counter, along with my key. Then I walked out. Earlier that evening, while Natalie was in the shower, I called my friend Mark and asked if I could stay at his place for a few nights. He said yes without hesitation. True friendship. When I showed up at his apartment around 1 a.m., he answered the door in boxers, eyes bleary but full of concern. You all right, man? Not really, I admitted, but I will be. We cracked open a couple of beers, and I laid it all out. Mark didn't try to talk me into going back or patching things up. He just raised his bottle, clinked it against mine, and said, "Her loss. Stay as long as you want." By morning, my phone was going off nonstop. Texts, missed calls, voicemails from Natalie growing more panicked by the hour. Where are you? Call me right now. I can't believe you left like this. The landlord said something about the lease. I can't afford this place on my own. You canceled the card. How am I supposed to buy groceries? That last one hit with irony. Despite her family's wealth, Natalie had always insisted on managing her finances independently, which in practice meant living off a modest entry-level publishing salary, while her parents quietly covered her loans, car payments, and kept an untouched emergency fund in the background. It was a point of pride for her, one that had now left her unprepared for actual independence. I ignored every message. Instead, I called my boss and asked for a few days off to deal with personal matters. I spent the next week searching for a new place and eventually landed a small, clean one-bedroom across town. It cost more than what I used to pay, but I could swing it thanks to recent project bonuses. Over the next several days, I slowly rebuilt my life. I slept on Mark's couch while organizing everything I'd need for transition, updated my address, ordered essentials like kitchenware, bedding, and toiletries to be delivered to his place. Since I still legally had access to the old apartment while the lease was being reassigned, I scheduled a moving service to pick up my furniture and large items on a weekday when I knew Natalie would be at work. Mark agreed to meet the movers with the spare key I still had and made sure only the agreed-upon items were taken. When my new place was ready, I had everything in order for a smooth move-in. Meanwhile, Natalie's text continued, shifting in tone from rage to desperation. "Please, talk to me. We can fix this." I didn't mean what I said. I was just overwhelmed with the wedding stuff. My parents were wrong. I realize that now. On the 5th day, I finally replied with a single message. "I'll be collecting the rest of my belongings next week. The utilities are paid through the end of the month. You'll need to transfer them into your name if you plan on staying. Let me know a time when you won't be home so I can finish moving out." She replied instantly, "Please don't do this. I love you. Too little, too late." Then came something unexpected. A call from Richard, her father. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Ryan," he said, voice surprisingly subdued, "we need to talk." "I don't think there's anything left to say, Richard. Please. Natalie, she's not in a good place. I'm sorry to hear that, but it's no longer my concern." He sighed. "Maybe I overstepped. I said things I shouldn't have. Could we meet? Caroline and I want to speak to you face to face." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Pure curiosity, I told myself. The next day, I walked into the cafe and was startled to see not just Richard and Caroline, but Natalie and her younger brother as well. The full family cast. "What's this?" I asked, staying on my feet by their table. "Please sit," Caroline said. Her usual polished composure looked strained. "We want to talk," she added gently. I sat down, intentionally putting as much distance as possible between me and Natalie. Her eyes were puffy and red, her appearance disheveled. Richard cleared his throat. "Ryan, I owe you an apology. What I said to Natalie about you, it was unfair, short-sighted. You think?" I said flatly. "Yes," he admitted. "This past week has made it very clear that we were wrong about you. Care to explain how?" Caroline stepped in. "Natalie's been crushed. We've never seen her like this. She hasn't been eating, barely sleeping. She's heartbroken. She truly does love you." I looked at Natalie. She didn't lift her head, tears silently falling. Richard shifted uncomfortably. "Turns out Natalie also wasn't entirely honest with us about your career. Her brother did some digging." "I'm a bit of an architecture geek," her brother chimed in. "So I Googled your name. Dude, your portfolio's insane. You helped design the Westbrook Tower, and you're lead on the Riverside project. That's huge." I gave a small shrug. "I've done all right at the firm. Why didn't you tell us?" Caroline asked. "Because it shouldn't matter," I replied. "I do this because I love the work, not to impress my fiancée's parents." Richard finally looked ashamed. "We misjudged you, and we were wrong to let our doubts influence Natalie. You didn't put anything in her head that wasn't already there. I think you're forgetting something," I said evenly. "Natalie's not a child. She made her decision with a clear head." "I made the wrong one," Natalie finally said, her voice raw and trembling. "I let their voices drown out my own. I was insecure, and I regretted it every single day since you walked away." Richard leaned forward. "We're here to ask you to reconsider, to give her another chance." I looked around the table at all of them, the very people who once decided I wasn't good enough. And now, suddenly, they were singing a different tune. "What changed, Richard?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. "Did you finally look up my name and realize I'm not a complete failure?" He hesitated before answering. "No," he said, though the flicker in his gaze gave him away. "It's because I've never seen my daughter this devastated. Whatever my faults, I do care about her. The truth was, I'd never gone out of my way to talk about my career. Not to Natalie, and certainly not to her family. It wasn't a secret, just not something I flaunted. The Riverside project had been consuming my life for months. I'd come home worn out, more inclined to listen than to recount technical details she didn't care about. Natalie had always preferred to share her world, and I had never minded that. "Ryan," she whispered, trying to reach for my hand. I pulled mine back instinctively. I was wrong. So wrong. I love you. Not your job, not your income, just you. I stared at her. But when it mattered most, you didn't stand up for me. When your parents doubted me, you stayed silent. Worse, you agreed with them. I was scared, she admitted, voice catching. I panicked about the wedding, the commitment, everything. It wasn't about you, it was my own anxiety. And now you're scared covering rent by yourself. I replied, the words hitting like a hammer. She winced. That's not fair. Isn't it? You didn't try to talk to me until after the lease was transferred. The credit card shut off. That's when the urgency hit you. That just made me realize how much I need you, she insisted. How much I rely on you. I don't want to be needed, I said softly. I want to be chosen. I stood up, and you chose their approval over me. Ryan, please, Caroline said, trying to steady the moment. People make mistakes. Natalie did. So did we. Don't you think those deserve forgiveness? I looked at them, this picture-perfect family, now scrambling to undo their own damage, and I felt nothing. The cold, calm clarity I'd found in their absence was still holding me firm. I wish you all the best, I said. Turning to leave,